Really excited about to hear what Katrina Noelle and Julia Isaacs have to say. They're two of our own. They're QRCA members, practicing qualitative researchers. But we're really interested and excited to hear what you're going to share with us about what your playbook looks like.
Thank you so much for having us today. And it's almost like this was planned because our segue to our presentation is fairly perfect after Isaac sort of threw down the gauntlet of test this stuff and give yourself the time and space to test it, because that's what we're here to talk about. So we're not here to recommend any specific tools or any specific parts of the research process to start experimenting with, but our mission really has been to talk people through that process of creating a playbook and testing things. So we are in line with Isaac on start with the pain points, make things less messy, and experiment on stuff. So what we're going to see today, I'll get to this in a couple of slides, but I just wanted to start off by saying one of the things we do at No Research is we do a pro bono project every year. So we take on a nonprofit or socially conscious company that may not have the budget to do research regularly. And it's a great experience for our team to be able to test a lot of things. So we do this every year. It's not always about AI. But what that does give us is data sets that that we can test things with. So we're able to really, as Isaac mentioned, not do it when the pressure's on of a paid live project, but to really proactively have, a testing in a play space. So when we reference some examples, that's where these have come from. So this is our plan. This is our overview. We're going to talk a little bit about our initiative, how to create your own playbook, some recommendations for yourself and teams that you work on, and we'll try to leave time too. That was a great amount of time for questions afterwards. We'll do our best. So our objectives for all of this is, why do this? One of our core company values is exploration, which is kind of another way of saying innovation, but we want to kind of put our researcher hat on when we talk about it of, is there an opportunity here? Is there an opportunity to innovate how we do what we do, why we do what we do, the steps along the way? And we wanted to make sure that the lens was very precise when we did this in terms of supporting human-centric work. I am putting my chips down with the humans, right? So we want to make sure that this is done in support rather than replacement of the human. But we are also always looking to be more efficient, effective humans. So let's get some help. And also to make sure that the results were optimal, because I think, it was mentioned earlier about not chasing the shiny thing, or, not just going after something because that's what's going on. The whole point is to be able to get really great quality and optimal output. So these are the lenses we're looking at our tests through. And this is the approach that we use. So this is what I mentioned. This was our pro bono project last year for a company called Piece by Piece International. They're a socially conscious gifting organization. So they work really closely with makers to make sure that you're not giving, swag water bottles that are getting thrown away at conferences, but you're actually giving something meaningful and appreciated to your employees and clients and, recipients like that. So that the forms we had everybody sign, and everyone was very well aware that this material was going to be part of testing tools and approaches. So that's why when we were able to test some of the open systems as well as some of the closed or bespoke research solutions as part of this. So we took a look at the process. So this is where I come back to the pain point situation, right? So of course there's permutations of this, and there's lots of different, varieties of ways people approach research, but essentially most of our projects go through this sort of path, right? So we sat down as a team and figured out where are the pain points? Where do we want to test if AI can make us faster, better, smarter, all of the things, right? And so we decided we don't really want to go after everything, but there are three key areas that for us, we really just wanted to make sure we tried to look for some tools. Isaac's right. It was very tempting to start at the end. very tempting to go right to deliverables, analysis, coding, themes. Every AI company right now is trying to sell us, we can get you insights. It's a little bit offensive, but it's okay. You know, that's their sales pitch, is that they're going to give us and I've said to them, we'll get the insights, but actually just like bucketed themes would be great. Like that's enough. You don't have to you don't have to promise us the final product. But we also wanted to test things further up the chain. And so we've been looking at the area of recruitment as well. I think that idea of talking to synthetic respondents and doing, using some of these tools to make sure that even the right questions are being asked in the screener. So even before you get to like, are we spending the right amount of time in the discussion guide? Like, are we asking the right questions? Are we recruiting the right people? Who's into this space right now? So we sort of started looking there. Now, I don't know where these stars will end up, right? I don't know if we'll have preferred tools and tech stacks at each of these steps, or if one of them is going to be, where a lot of our AI energy is. Talk to us a year from now and see how we're doing. Because this is a completely ever-changing moment by moment landscape, right? So this is where we are at the moment. We started this initiative about a year ago, actually, last summer. So everything you're seeing here, is very real time, is what we've been able to do as a small, nimble team in about a year of trying to keep up with all these options. So Julia is going to walk us through a little bit of the tools we tested and some of the learnings. But again, this is not an endorsement. This is a set of examples of what we actually, I'm supposed to do this slide. So yes, we're not endorsing any of these companies. We just want to sort of put this out here that these are the ones that we've tested so far. Although our coordinator Emily and I went to a women business enterprise event on Tuesday, and so we have to add 2 more because based on that event, we threw 2 more in the testing pipeline just this week. But this is kind of how we're thinking about it. And just to explain that third category, that's a little bit about, it's more of output. So when we were testing the the learning models, and then kind of these research specific tools, like these are all our industry friends, right? Trying to help us out by giving us tools. So they're a little more likely to be closed and protected and a little bit more private use of data, right? And then we wanted to put these deliverables, folks, in a separate section, because that's when you think of us producing our audio deliverables, video deliverables, slides, graphics, images, all of that. So a lot of our marketing materials. So we just wanted to put them a little bit separately because it's less about the data and more about the output from our studies.
I'll take the mic now. Thank you, Katrina, for the background.
Thank you.
And yes, as Katrina mentioned, part of our internal initiative did focus up through the research supply chain at the recruitment step. And for our team, that stage really poses the first challenge of figuring out what the project is all about, who do we need to speak to, and how can we find these needles in the haystack. So when we're developing these screeners, our team really found it useful to pose questions to AI when they were not as familiar with the category. So that really helped them kind of understand, things ranging from a brand's competitors to regional nuances, things that they might not be as in the know about. And how you pose a question in the screener really matters. I think Isaac mentioned this too, but it's not only to ensure that participants are qualified, but it's that they're engaged. Their attention isn't fizzling out. So AI can be sort of a thought partner to help you understand which types of questions are going to be interesting, appealing, and how to structure that accordingly to engage participants. One thing to note here, though, is along with all of AI's perks, you definitely need to take a fine tooth comb when reviewing its output. So an example is, you may ask AI to populate a list with, the top department stores in the US. It might put in one from Canada. So it's always good to check to see what it might be sneaking in. And then when we're talking about analysis, this was definitely a big pain point for our team. We are up against tight turnaround times, and we always want to ensure that we're delivering human-centric comprehensive synthesis. But we discovered that a real ideal use case for bringing AI is when you're short on time. Maybe that's when you're frantically pulling together a summary. You're at your wit's end after doing back-to-back focus groups all day. Or maybe you need to bring something for an interim workshop in between phases, some initial thoughts. So we also found that for asynchronous diaries, when you're dealing with larger amounts of data, larger amounts of participants, in-depth exercises, that can be useful to have an extra pair of eyes kind of filter through that data. And we're thinking about the scale of data too. When you have a lot of audience segmentation, it can be useful to use AI to kind of compare and contrast their attitudes and behaviors in that way. And I'd say the good news here that we found out is that AI is accurate at identifying general themes in our research, but it does push in the direction of conciseness and often lacks that richness, depth, specific participant mention examples that really ladder up those general themes. So maybe a good gut check, right? But ultimately, it's not as willing to dive into those insights weeds as we might need it to. I'm gonna take a pause to grab a sip of water. And I will say too, it's sort of difficult to integrate AI at this stage. For one thing, we are up against these tight timelines. So, you know, as strategists, we sometimes struggle testing these tools in real time. So instead, what we're doing is testing using previous analysis, previous projects, and using that as a benchmark to cross-compare what AI is producing. And I think it's all well and good if, you know, AI is properly synthesizing these insights, but that's not the same thing as it living and breathing within your own brain. So I do think that we need to be advocates of manual levers to ensure that the insights are living in your brain as well. And finally, another part of our process was the development of our video auditory deliverables. And wow, this space is broad for all types of things AI. There's so much variety of media out there to choose from. So maybe you need to add translated subtitles to your marketing videos, or you're trying to produce a podcast in the middle of a crowded, busy audio airport, but you need that studio sound quality. So there's definitely an AI solution for you. And as a small qual shop, video podcast production really complements our core focus of ideation, facilitation, moderation, those types of things. So we found it very easy to see the quality difference in what AI was delivering and what those capabilities could provide. And they were saving us a lot of time. Compared to if we had to learn and manually do it ourselves, thus kind of helping our team get creative in ways that we couldn't do before. And I will say here, all good things do take time to learn. And although we're not building a podcast from scratch in iMovie anymore, we're still adding a new step into our editing process by introducing a new tool. So that's going to be disruptive. And I think it's a good point here to say you had to really be specific about what you're bringing in to help your team and their needs. So through this initiative, we were able to generate a AI produced report. So hopefully this is a video. Hopefully that's going. Yes. And a big aha moment is when we realized that the output of this particular report was only as good as our input, what we were feeding the machine, if you will. So we fed it our project objectives, a little background about our client, who they were, what their needs are, transcripts from the research, a discussion guide, even a framework for how we wanted that analysis structured. And at No Research, we have a similar but human developed sort of report. And if we're comparing that, it's called the Insight Summary, by the way. And if we're comparing that kind of apples to apples, this AI generated document you see before you, it's much shorter. I think this took about 3 hours to produce versus a whole day, which is what our strategists usually have to turn around a similar type of document. But what I say is what is missing is participant verbatims, which adds so much support and context to our reporting. So we found that AI was kind of hard to ladder up those general insights with accurate and stand out verbatims.
I'm going to
So
jump in here, Julia,
yeah.
because also I thought it was really interesting because you struggled to get it to write 6 pages. It really wanted to give you 2. Like it really wanted to take it very condensed. And so I think that's interesting, right? I mean, we have to balance people's attention spans and desire for something quick and short and leave behind with making sure we're actually providing the depth. If we're doing qualitative, we also need to provide the depth. So I just think that was interesting because you did a few rounds with the tech on this one to try to get it to give you more, expand more.
Yeah, I was begging at some point, but we got what we got. And with that, we actually passed it on to our stakeholders to see what their opinion reaction to this type of deliverable. So we asked them directly, in what situations could an AI generated report be valuable to you? Could something like this replace or maybe even complement something that we're currently providing? And the answer that we got was along the lines of, okay, I'm intrigued. When we are against these tight turnaround times, this could be a potential good use case, but ultimately, it's not capturing that comprehensive synthesis that they're used to receiving from us. So good news that AI can provide a solution, but also that centric depth is appreciated as well. So that's a little bit about our experience with AI. Let's talk about you now. So we've created this step-by-step process for how to effectively, efficiently kind of tackle on an AI project. And we'll spend the remainder kind of going through each of these steps one by one. So before you're kind of set sailing on this AI journey, you really need to set your priorities straight before you kind of get lost in the sea of endless AI platforms. So we recommend this funneled approach, starting first by determining your team's pain points, really giving your team space to kind of air and validate their grievances. Do they have issues setting up the project, creating a screener? For our team, analysis had a lot of hurdles, right? We're digesting a whole swath of data in a little amount of time, but we don't want to, have quality come at a cost of that hurdle. Next, you want to identify areas ripe for innovation. Maybe that's something that you'd like to implement something entirely new or disrupt a current process. In our team's case, that was deliverables. We needed higher quality visuals and audio outputs. And again, we didn't have a lot of time to do that. So that was disrupting a current process of ours. And finally, don't add anything unnecessary to your plate to test. We weren't looking to overhaul our current human-centric fieldwork, so we skipped out on evaluating platforms focused on chatbots or automated interviews. That might change. We don't know. Synthetic data has been a big hot topic, so we might experiment with that in the future. But next you want to do is set regular check-ins. And I think what's important to acknowledge right now is like AI is this cultural phenomenon that can and will continue to disrupt all the ways that research has been conducted up until this point. So it's really about creating those intentional spaces for your team to voice their feelings about AI, because you definitely don't want to risk ending up with a great tool that doesn't align with your team's priorities and feelings. And this is something not to just do once, but multiple times, because you might just find that your team's opinions might change based on what part of the research process you're testing. For our team, we discovered that AI tools that synthesize data felt a little bit more intimidating than ones that could be used to edit a podcast. And then when you're at the end of this journey, when maybe you have these top AI contenders that you're bringing forth to your team, that's when it's helpful for another check-in and bringing in that external support expertise from the tool itself to kind of guide that adoption process, if that's the point that you were at. So then you need to figure out a way to kind of test, track, and evaluate all these tools, right? So having a structured tracker lets you compare these types of tools, apples to apples, which you can reference later on when it comes time for adoption. So here we have an example of our analysis criteria, but this could look very different according to you and your team's needs. So we discovered through testing that it's really important to capture the quality of participant quotes it's surfacing, as well if it includes a generative, AI chatbot feature that allows you to have that back and forth iterative conversation. That was a big priority for our team. But again, that could change based on you and your team's outcomes and expectations. We spoke a little bit about like the importance of having this ongoing conversation internally, but it shouldn't be just this conversation and feedback loop shouldn't be just siloed internally. And I think it's really important to have this dynamic feedback loop that spans with the AI tool creators themselves, as well as your stakeholders. So we'll spend a little time talking about what that is. So moving outside of your team, we've had some of the best conversations throughout this process with the AI tool designers themselves, that are those who are creating AI tools for research specific needs. And we were really transparent with them up at the front, and said, we're testing multiple tools through this process, this initiative. We're really trying to find the best fit for our organization. And we came to them with plenty of questions, even about AI. They taught us so much about what that means, how we could translate that back to our team, our stakeholders. And so I think that was a great reciprocal kind of learning experience too, because we gave them feedback about how this was matching up with what we needed as qualitative researchers, because ultimately they're trying to create tools that really assist and build what we're doing, complement our core focus. And then definitely want to be open with your stakeholders as well, that you're just testing AI tools in general, right? So get a temperature check on, can you even test these? With what projects? With what types of data points? And if you are able to test, really deliver to them some sample outputs and deliverables that you're working to get their reaction along the way. And what that process was like of building them, and some of the pros and cons and whatever could really help bring those deliverables to life. All right. And then the last step is, at some point you're going in this general exploration of what's out there, you're going to arrive at this like no or go crossroads, right? Where a go decision meaning you're ready to onboard a new tool, or maybe you're not. And then you just need to continue on this iterative journey. But if the goal is to onboard a tool, it's really important to articulate that expected outcome, right? Is it, because I think that goalpost is going to change based on whether you want to enable a new type of deliverable, you're introducing a new methodology, establishing a new best practice. So it's all going to change. So be very intentional about that goal. And now I'm going to pass the mic back to Katrina, who's going to take us through some of our benefits of starting this AI journey.
Yes. So the benefits is not just knowing what everyone's talking about when they're talking about AI, but that's a benefit. That's a benefit. But I think, I see this as really helping our organization considerably in many ways. So our organization, the industry, et cetera. I think this has really strengthened a lot of our relationships with our suppliers. One thing to note also, that it's not just like we went to a whole new group of people and said, what have you got? We contacted all of the friendlies, right? All of our usual supplier and vendor partners and said, what's in the pipeline? What have you got going on? Should we test things? We have preferred, synchronous, asynchronous tools. We have preferred recruiting partners. We've got all these folks, right? And we wanted to make sure that we connected with them and tried to see what they were doing and testing, and if we could be helpful while they're all in beta versions. So that was a key benefit. We also validated, like, for now, we're still justified as having jobs and working in this field. I think there's definitely a need for humans still, and hopefully always will be. So that was very validating. I admit we got into this and we worried a little bit, but that's been affirming. And really, I think the other benefit is just affirming, like, being able to use all of the versatile tools that AI enables you to do. I think it was just so closely connected to ChatGPT at the beginning, but now you can really go to like marketplaces and see all the tools that are built for all of the different reasons. I just saw a presentation recently that, he did it in real time and showed how you could build your own GPT to do things like search your employee handbook. So if someone has a questions, they can just ask your GPT. So there's just so much versatility in terms of benefits right now. Obviously, improving processes and products. I think we definitely have some new tools in the tech stack right now that are really helping us. And it was a great growth opportunity for members of our team. So just so you know, Julia is half of the AI task force at No Research. Sadie, our operations assistant, is the other half, and she couldn't be here today. But it was really important for me that I had a lead from kind of the strategy research moderation side, as well as a person from the operations logistics legal side, right? Working on this together so that they could both weigh in on the pros and cons of the tools and the benefits and the usage. So, and both of them have just, now they're our experts. And if we need to know what's going on, we just ask them. So that's exciting, and hopefully setting up them well up in their careers as well as being kind of AI experts from the start. So yeah, it's been a kind of a wild ride. It will continue to be. We're definitely not done with this. We're just on a road. So we're so happy. I mean, Elle, please let me know how long we have for questions. We've answered some of the chat already, but happy to take anything additional, open up the mic, etc.
We have time for questions. Thank you so much for asking me, Katrina. We're fine on time. And so anyone who has a question, go ahead.
Help us understand how the group that you did the pro bono work responded to the approach and the final results.
Yeah, I think that we were pretty transparent. I mean, from the beginning, in our kickoff call, right? I think even maybe earlier, we had formed this idea that we wanted to take this into testing. And so it just came from one of those conversations, right? Of us being able to offer them a full service project, and them being extremely grateful for that opportunity and realizing that this is how we could have that reciprocal relationship as well, allowing us to really be able to test these things and some of those open source large language models too, as Katrina was testing. So we were very lucky that they were on the same page, and we definitely wanted to make sure we were on the same page before, assuming they were on board.
And an extra note to that is that we work, we have a couple key verticals, and one of them is financial services. And many of our clients on that side of things are not allowed to touch it yet. They have been told, nope, you cannot use the tools at work. You cannot use the tools on work devices. Our legal team is trying to figure this out right now. So they have actually been quite grateful as well, because we have been keeping them up to speed on what we're testing. And that sample report, that's, we set that sample. We said, this isn't your project, but just FYI, this is kind of the type of thing that we're working on. And so I think that helps as well. Like we know that we can't put their data into anything. However, they as professionals are very curious. So it's helped us kind of build those relationships as well, because they know we're not using their data, but that we're, up to speed and we're ready. And whenever their policy changes, we're going to be on top of it.
I just wanted to comment, Katrina and Julia, that I love the rigor that you've applied as someone who has spent quite a bit of time playing and more than dabbling with a lot of tools, AI tools out there. I think, what you've done in your model is great. I just want to really reiterate for everyone here on this call how valuable it is, not just in that back-end data analysis. There really are so many use cases in both, as I would just distill it down to pre, during, and post. So we all know, yeah, it's great. It's what's been said, but even just upfront at selling projects and developing proposals in ways that are just more robust to really win the project. There are so many ways to leverage AI in what we do that doesn't involve analysis, that really, and the during. So at all touch points, essentially. So it's exciting, but I love what you guys shared and love that you have such a rigorous process in terms of thinking about it. So yay.
Well, you may like this then, Lauren. Okay, so this is my new geeky plug of the week. There's a tool called Humanizer. that it plugs into LinkedIn. This is very creepy. Definitely do it to your own profile. And it reads somebody's profile and it gives you recommendations on like what they're like as a person and their DISC assessment and how you should reach out to them and connect with them. It's wild. So, but I've got it as a plugin and I'm going to use it like unabashedly. That's fine. So you're right, Lauren, like there's all of these tools that kind of help us along the way. It's also just fascinating to be in the kind of race to see which ones of these survive, right?
Yep.
This is going to be like, you know, which is the AOL and which is the Firefox and which is the Chrome, you know? So it's exciting to be in these early days.
Totally. And even, you know, leveraging AI to detect AI. Like that's one of the things that we have a speaker for QRCA's AI days that will, you know, be talking about that. Or just detecting AI in general, when we don't want it to be used, i.e. especially asynchronous work. So yeah, exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's how you can connect with us. And thank you so much. Appreciate it.